Rishan Thurgood. Today I'll be talking about Thurgood Marshall. First, let me tell you about his background. Thurgood Marshall was born on 2nd July 1908 in Baltimore, Maryland. His original name was Thurgood, but he shortened it to Thurgood. He was the grandson of a slave. His father, William Canfield Marshall, worked as a railroad porter, and his mother, Norma Erica Williams, as a teacher. Marshall learned to appreciate United States Constitution and rule of law from his parents. Marshall's father used to take him and his brother to watch court cases, which actually helped him to learn how to debate. He attended Frederick Douglass High School in Baltimore and was placed in the class with the best students. Marshall graduated a year early in 1925 and was placed in the top third of the class. He followed his brother, William Albrecht Marshall, at the historically Black Lincoln University in Chester County, Pennsylvania. His classmates there included a distinguished group of future Black leaders such as the poet and author Langston Hughes, the future president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, and musician Cab Calloway. Marshall graduated from Lincoln with honors BA in humanities with a major in American literature and philosophy. In 1930, Marshall applied to the University of Maryland Law School in his hometown, but was denied admission because he was Black. He then attended Howard University School of Law. His views on discrimination were strongly influenced by the dynamic New Deal. Charles Hamilton Houston, who instilled in all of his students the desire to apply the tenets of the Constitution to all Americans. He graduated first in his class at Howard in the year 1943. Now, let me tell you about his achievements. After graduating from law school, Marshall started a private law practice in Baltimore. His 25-year affiliation with the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, began in 1934 when he represented the organization in the law school discrimination suit Murray versus Pearson. In 1936, Marshall became part of the national staff of the NAACP. At the age of 32, Marshall won U.S. Supreme Court case Chambers versus Florida 309 U.S. 227, 1940. That same year, he founded and became the executive director of the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund. As the head of the Legal Defense Fund, he had argued many other civil rights cases, most of them successfully, before the Supreme Court. Paramount in Houston's outlook was the need to overturn the 1898 Supreme Court ruling. Plessy versus Ferguson. This led to the establishment of the legal doctrine called separate but equal. Marshall's first major court case came in 1933 when he successfully sued the University of Maryland to admit a young African-American Amherst University graduate named Donald Gaines Murray. Also, during this period, Marshall was asked by the United Nations and the United Kingdom to help draft the constitutions of the emerging African nations of Ghana and Tanzania. After winning an impressive record of Supreme Court challenges, to state-sponsored discrimination, including the notable milestone Brown versus Board decision in 1954, President John F. Kennedy appointed Thurgood Marshall to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. During his tenure, he wrote over 150 decisions, including support for the rights of immigrants, limiting government intrusion in cases involving illegal search and seizure, double jeopardy, and right to privacy issues. In 1965, President Lyndon Johnson appointed Judge Marshall to the office of U.S. Solicitor General before his subsequent nomination to the United States Supreme Court in 1967. Thurgood Marshall won 14 of the 19 cases he argued before the Supreme Court on behalf of the government. It goes without saying, Marshall represented and won more cases before the United States Supreme Court than any other American. Justice Marshall died on 24 January 1993. Until his retirement from the highest court in the land, Justice Marshall had established a record for supporting the oppressed and voiceless Americans. He developed a profound sensitivity to justice, bringing about a change in the society by fighting for the racially discriminated sections in this country. Now I'll be talking about my opinion. I meant finally here's my opinion. Through my study, I think Justice Marshall brought about a prominent and significant change in the society of our country by standing up against the injustice that was inflicted on the voiceless Americans. In my opinion, as an Associate Supreme Court Justice, Thurgood Marshall has left behind a legacy which expands that early sensitivity to include all of America's voiceless women. Thank you for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions, please ask me now.